I think he should be regarded as one of the best props that the game's produced.
One of the great front rowers of the modern era.
Probably the best front rower ever to play the game, what I've seen.
He's certainly been the best front rower, just ran around.
Up straight, the big fellow.
The thing I loved about Lazo most of all was he never, ever didn't do his job.
Lazarus busting tackles. Bumping run by Glenn Lazarus. He's been outstanding.
You know, success has naturally come his way.
Teams are always successful with Glenn Lazarus in the side.
Lazo's got a very soft heart, good fella, and was a great player.
Glenn Lazarus, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure, mate.
How's life treating you back here in Canberra?
It's wonderful. My nickname now is not the Brick with Eyes, it's Sir Lunch a Lot. And as you can see, I have lunches a lot in Canberra, and it's great. Yeah. It's a great life.
So you've had many different kind of lives and went to the pinnacle of sport, politics. If you were to sum it all up, the professional life of Glenn Lazarus in a couple of words, what do you think you could sum it up?
Oh, look, a miracle, to be honest. I just came into playing footy seriously, as in playing first grade at the right time. I managed to win grand finals wherever I went, and that's because of the people that I was playing with and the people that were running the clubs. Then the politics was just something that came out of the blue. As a politician, I made a pretty good footballer.
When you're on the football field, you were one of the great winners of all time. You won, 5 grand finals?
Just wanted to be successful. I find that clubs today sometimes struggle because people in positions of power and that make decisions are making them based on what they can get out of it, or whether it's them keeping their jobs. You look at those teams that I played with in all 3 clubs. The Melbourne one was a bit different, but I think the Canberra and Brisbane ones were always going to win competitions, and I was just very lucky to be around when they decided to win them. So even Melbourne Storm, if John Rebo, Chris Johns, Chris Anderson weren't involved with the club, it wouldn't be the club it is today. That's the one component in the 3 clubs that I played for. They just wanted to win games and win competitions.
The stats across your career are insane. A 70% win rate, over 250 games, 13 seasons in the NRL, never missed the finals once. What do you think was the biggest thing that you added to those teams?
Look, it's a pretty easy job when you think about your game and what you want to achieve in any particular game. Playing in the front row is a pretty basic. You just got to go forward and get the side going, and hopefully the other guys that are in certain positions will capitalise on it. I think the biggest thing is I just didn't want to let players down.
Lazarus busting tackles.
What Glenn did for a side, he gave his inside halves or backs a lot of time with the ball in their hands, and got teams on a roll, and success has naturally come his.
And it is such a tough position. I imagine there's an element, a massive element of aggression or even ego or dominance, being the alpha male. Like, did you see yourself as that kind of player?
No, I'm not that type of person. I could probably count on one hand the amount of fights I got into and stuff like that, That's a distraction from doing your job.
Under the nickname from Roy and HD, the Brick with Eyes. Do you still like it? Do you still get called it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more people know me as that than by my real name, I was very lucky very early in the Broncos days. That was when they first came up with it, so we're talking 92, 93, something like that. An actual brick company decided that they would want me to endorse their product, and just so happened we were building a house at that particular time, and we got a lot of bricks and pavers for free. So that worked out really well, really well. As I say, it could be called a lot worse, and a couple of times people put a P in front instead of a B and things like that, but look, I'm happy.
One of the great rugby league nicknames. Before you became the Brick with Eyes, I want to go back to your junior days and playing, you're a Queanbeyan boy. You describe yourself as a late bloomer coming into rugby league. Why were you late to the party in terms of becoming a first grader?
I played every year up until I was a young teenager, and played a lot of Aussie rules as well through that time. I was a very lazy person, I didn't want to train, and I just gave it away, gave the footy away, and some friends decided they wanted to start playing, wanted to go and play footy, so I went along with them. I sat on the bench all year, got three to 5 minutes a game. And I really don't know what it was, but in 1985, I decided that I'd go back to the Blues, and I ended up started playing first grade for them. And following year, I got a letter from the Raiders asking to trial for 21s competition. And I was lucky to get into that team and sort of progress through that way. I mean, I didn't play first grade until I was about 23 years old.
Well, I'm not quite sure who that was designed for, but anyway, they've still got the ball here at Canberra, and they're making ground as Lazarus. He's got it away to Ferguson. Can he slip the pass? Yes, he's got it away to Lance again. Lance gets it away to Stewart. Stewart for the line himself, and Stewart's in. Another Canberra try.
You describe yourself there as a lazy or a bit of a poor trainer or whatever. Did that continue throughout your career? Is that something you battled with?
No, well, it did. It sort of did and it didn't. I mean, my personality, and you can ask any coach or player that I was involved with, they'll always tell you that I was cranky and grumpy, you know. I'd whinge and moan about the training, but I'd do it. And a lot of the times I would do training away from, the actual training sessions, at home, or, would go for runs and things like that. Because I think, I did know that I had a weight problem, and if I didn't do it, I would put weight on, and of course, I wouldn't have achieved what I did if I still had that lazy mentality, Pre-seasons I hated because it always come back of overweight, and, the first training session I'd have such a sore back because it's holding my big guts up.
When you say that, there's a difference between being a footballer and an athlete sometimes. Is that right with you? And maybe the footballers are slowly disappearing a bit more these days as opposed to because they're such unbelievable athletes.
Yeah, that's right. I keep getting told that people like me are going to be extinct in the years to come. Whilst the game has really changed since I played, the team still needs to go forward, and you need to get momentum, and you still need to get field position, and one of the best ways to do that is have blokes that are prepared to just run into brick walls. And I remember John McTighe saying, Lazo, you haven't got a Rolls-Royce body, but you've got a smash-up derby body. You don't mind getting a dent in it every now and again,
So you signed with the Raiders, you're 23-odd coming into first grade. What was your first contract, worth $1,000 or something?
Well, that year, the 86 year, I actually owed them money because in those days you would literally have to pay for your own clothing and tracksuits and things like that. There were massive incentives in those days, which I still think should be involved today because it had certainly sorted a few blokes out.
Wayne Bennett gave you your debut in 87.
Glenn Lazarus is the man that's come on, the big, healthy-looking lad at number 23.
Has he always been the same kind of character and coach?
No, well, he hasn't been because he's had to adapt because since Wayne has started coaching to now, the game has changed dramatically. The biggest attribute was that players just didn't want to let Wayne down. And I know many a Bronco first grader came up for contract renewals and would take less money to stay at the Broncos and go elsewhere. And I think Wayne was a big part of that.
Lazarus, is he going to reach out? Yes, right next to the post. The Raiders are back. 2 years after they threatened Manly in 87, they're back to take on the Tigers for sure.
Obviously, some great successes with Canberra, 89.
Wayne Pearce and Benny Elias, you could tell that they were shattered. And, they were buggered. Leading up to the full time, we had all the momentum, we were gathering momentum. I get quite emotional when I talk about 89 because it was the first grand final I ever played in. And to be able to go and win that and come back to the place that I grew up in, and we had so many local kids in that team, Ricky, Clydie, Laurie was just a 16-year-old when he came to the Raiders. It was such a wonderful thing to come back to this city and see the elation on the fans' faces. And of course, the famous Bob Hawke coming into the dressing room after the game. That was a very funny moments there too, but we won't go into that. And of course, we smashing the trophy on when we were parading around. That was also a memorable moment, but yeah, it was wonderful times.
Kicked off a pretty great 12 months for you, right? Like from there to 1990, Origin win, another grand final back-to-back, a Kangaroo tour as well. That 12-month period.
I mean, I've always said that the year after you win a grand final is always your hardest because then everyone sees you as the mark, and that 1990 year, every team was up for us, you know, because we're the premiers, you know. But of course we went on to beat Penrith in the grand final. But it was a good year. There's obviously a lot of incentive around going on a kangaroo tour. You know, I, as a kid, used to stay up at all hours of the morning watching the kangaroo tour games and so forth, and I desperately wanted to get onto it. It was a big year for a lot of reasons. One of them was that I got married that year as well, and I'd proposed to Tess mid-season, and Bozo was suggesting that, you know, if you got picked in this team, bar injuries or form, you were going to be picked on the kangaroo tour. So I spoke to my wife, or my wife-to-be, about it. You were leaving the next day. We literally left the next day. So we went through, and I got, you know, split. She wasn't happy about that, and all this sort of stuff. But of course, we won the grand final.
Next week, you get married on the Saturday, kangaroo tour, hopefully on the Sunday. Congratulations, good luck.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Thank you.
Mate, after a grand final, you tend to celebrate a bit, so... and they don't tend to be, you know, like an overnighter. It seems to go for a week. And, of course, we had to have rehearsals for weddings and so forth. So, I was getting in trouble and all that. Anyway, so... We got married on the 29th of September, and on the 30th we flew out to England and France for 10 weeks and spent my entire honeymoon with Blocker Roach.
How did the new marriage with you and Blocker work out?
Yeah, it worked out really well because around that period of time, the WWF was starting to become really popular, and we were right into it. One of us would get the room service. So the room service was a bowl of ice cream with some wafers stuck in them, and some Diet Coke, right? So we balanced it out, and then we would sit there and watch the WWF. Yeah, it was great. I mean, we're still very good friends to this day.
Glenn Lazarus onto the field, 17 stitches in that cut above his left eye.
Talk about those wonderful memories, and you mentioned that second Ashes test in that kangaroo tour. And I think you were sporting the big headband because you split 20 stitches in your head or something.
We were playing Castleford, and I went in to make a tackle, and I went low, and Sparkles, Mark McGaw, was in the tackle with me, and unfortunately his knee came into contact with my head, and he split my eye, you know, from the inside of my eye up to my forehead, and then we put the headgear on, and and this was to play the second test at the Old Trafford. So sure enough, the first time I took the ball up, the headgear left, and then I struggled, you know, was always patching it up as the game went on, and it looked like they were going to beat us, and it was going to be the first time we'd lost the Ashes in so many years. But then, of course, Ricky and Mal and the boys stepped up to the plate and got us home, and the calling of that try in particular just sends shivers up my spine.
Stewart throws the dummy. Now Ricky Stewart's on his own. He's up to the halfway. He's waiting for Eddie Housen. He's got support. Eddie Housen's with him. He gets goals. Oh, what a try. What a try. What a run from Stewart. And what a try. Maninga.
Little man on the big man. Maninga running across field looking for support. He holds it up for Gale. Gale puts the foot down, gets it back. Lazarus has broken from the scrum to set Bruce Stadium alight.
A lot of success in 1990, but by your own admission, made you a little bit complacent in 1991, and all of that kind of went the other way.
I bumbled my way through the season up until about 8 weeks till it's finished. And then, of course, the Raiders were in salary cap trouble, and they made all our contracts null and void. They all had to be renegotiated and so forth. Yeah, so that opened the door for me to head north.
Lazarus.
That's a better run from Brisbane. Lazarus straight up the middle. They need 2 or 3 more forwards doing what Lazarus is doing.
So 92, 93, back-to-back again. And for you, they've been 5 straight grand finals, right? And 4 premierships in that time. But what distinguished 92 and 93 for you?
Success in 92 was a great relief to me because when I officially moved to Brisbane, literally the next day, they wanted to hold a press conference. I did more interviews in that one day than I did in the 5 years or whatever I played first grade for Canberra, you know. And you could just tell that rugby league was a very important factor in a lot of people's lives up there in Queensland.
Chance for Brisbane again. Through Cairn, it's gone over to Lazarus. They won't stop him. Lazarus goes in to score.
There was this headline about being the Great White Hope. A lot of people were saying that the Broncos hadn't won a competition yet because they haven't had a quality front rower, and I thought, geez, I'm under a bit of pressure here.
Well, I expect to play very well. I promised the guys I'd play very well for them if they got in the grand final, so I'm expecting to have a big game.
Look, the Broncos are always going to win grand finals. It was just a matter of time, and luckily for me, it was the first 2 years I was there, and I can remember coming back to Brisbane after the grand finals. The people certainly appreciated it.
The boys have sort of asked me whether I'm accepted as a Queenslander yet. I don't know.
Of those two teams, you went back-to-back in 89-90 with Canberra and the 92-93 Broncos. Two of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah, I would think.
If they were to play each other at their full strength primes, if it was possible, who do you think wins?
Well, I know I would, because I would play in both of them. If you just looked at them on paper, there's no way you could pick a certain winner.
What they didn't get to do was celebrate with Tina Turner.
It'd be a bit hard these days. She came down and Kevy's got his arm around her and things as if she was just a mate, and stuff like that. I think the game went to another level, I think, with her involvement.
In the years after that, obviously, if that was peak rugby league in the 90s, then came Super League. Alf was kind of the guiding factor for the Broncos, right? He went and everyone else followed?
Yeah, pretty much. Players were taking less money before Super League, and I think a lot of us could have earned quite a lot more money if we decided we wanted to leave and were prepared to go to an ARL club. But we all stuck fat and we all wanted to be together.
After 3 years of courtroom war, nothing could compare with the sight of the jewel in the Super League crown finally headed to battle.
This is what they've been waiting for.
We feel like we're pioneers. It's the dawn of a new era in rugby league. We think we're doing the right thing for the game, and let's just hope that the year pans out and the fans want to the Super League concept.
In the end, it only lasted a year, thankfully, and 97 was an interesting year, actually. I think they announced that Melbourne was going to be a franchise in 1998. I had a meeting with Wayne. I had a contract in place for the 98 season at the Broncos, and I wanted to extend it a year because I felt that 99 was going to be my last year, and he wasn't prepared to offer me anything. I went home and spoke to my wife, and I bugger it. So we signed with Melbourne for 2 years. They were happy to give me the 99 year, and so, yeah, so the Melbourne thing started.
And Lazarus, don't the crowd here in Melbourne enjoy him?
Obviously, Melbourne and Victoria is not rugby league orientated, and just the way we had to sort of get ourselves out there and entice people to follow us, particularly leading into our first year, because we had no players from there.
How did you do it? Because I heard you talk about when you arrived in Melbourne, you couldn't even watch State of Origin live in Melbourne. It was on, you had to go on Channel 9 or something and watch it through the satellite.
We did.
So how did you create this club? First of all, it's winning culture, but also the fact that it doesn't matter if you're winning if no one's watching you.
All clubs, they need to have a winning culture. If you don't have a winning culture, you're going to struggle. So how do we do that? We had players coming from everywhere. Western Reds had folded, the Adelaide Rams, and the coach hadn't coached a lot of us. Obviously, rugby league is a very minor sport in Victoria. So one of the first things we spoke about was, we need to be really competitive at our home games, because if we're not, people won't bother coming. Leading into the first year, 98, we were going to win the wooden spoon. We're going to be struggling and so forth and all that sort of stuff. They didn't realise that, Brett Camorley and Scotty Hill and Robbie Ross and Marcus Bai, and they were just starting their careers, and they were going to end up becoming, representative players. And of course, we managed to get in the semi-finals the first year. Didn't quite get there, but of course in the second year, got into the grand final, obviously, in 99 and won the bloody thing. And I can say right now, the emotion for me was just disbelief. I could not believe that this club, within 2 years, had won a grand final. I mean, that's just to win the way we did. You know, it was amazing. It was amazing, and as I say to you, the disbelief.
First of all, what do you rate your cartwheel out of 10?
Yeah, probably a 6 at the most, maybe. I mean, it was a pretty ordinary. Standing there at 120 kilos, thinking, bugger it. And so I tried to do this cartwheel, and I managed to get one. But if I did one today, I'd probably you'd want to have an ambulance sitting out there waiting.
The perfect way to sail off into the sunset as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not many blokes get to, you know, play their last game in a winning grand final. Again, I was just so blessed to be at the right place at the right time. It's wonderful.
Lazarus now, steaming in behind to play the ball. Bumping run by Glenn Lazarus. He's been outstanding. Elias away, Lazarus! Lazarus gets the try! First of the game.
We've talked about Kangaroo Tours, we've talked about grand finals. Obviously, the other big part of your career was your Origin career. What was it like to be a kind of, I guess, an honorary Queenslander in the fact that you were playing for the Broncos, winning competition for the Broncos, playing with a lot of those Queenslanders, and then playing for this New South Wales side that was quite dominant in those early 90s?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. It wasn't my favourite thing to do is to play against, you know, 7 or 8 of your teammates, but it's Origin.
Away from dummy half is Lazarus. Lazarus goes for the line. He's in for the try.
Well, Jack Gibson wanted this man in the side, and that's the reason. He's such an honest player. He'll give everything he's got.
Once you put that sky blue jersey on and you cross that white line, the maroon jerseys are the enemy, and it doesn't matter who's wearing them. You know, you hit them as hard as you would anyone. And the next day we'd go to Broncos training and we'd all be mates. We'd have, you know, there'd be banter about who won and who lost and all this sort of stuff. I love playing Origin. It was almost a test every time you play, a test in your ability as a footballer.
They're stacking the left-hand side here, New South Wales.
Elias away, Lazarus! Lazarus gets the try! First of the game! First rugby league try on the Melbourne Cricket Ground.
And a very well-executed move from New South Wales involving Ben Elias and the big man Lazarus coming through.
And Gus took us to Lang Park one day and told us to go out and find our own 10 by 10 metre bit of grass. You can do whatever you want. You can walk around that 10 metres, you can lay down, you can do whatever. But what I want you to do is think about the people that are important to you and how much they want you to play well and be successful tonight, you know. And that really hits home to me, particularly with my father. That was the sort of mentality we went in with, not wanting to let not only your teammates down, but of course all the New South Wales supporters.
The Blues come from the famous dressing rooms and make that rather lonely walk out. We ride on the back of Glenn Lazarus, and so too do a lot of the hopes of New South Wales.
You know, you can see the passion in the fans, you know, how much it means for New South Wales or Queensland to win, you know. They're so very passionate about Origin. It's a wonderful concept. At the end of the day, you're either a Queenslander or you're a New South Wales supporter. And the Broncos fans literally don't talk to me. You go to the local supermarket and they don't talk to you. They snub you because you're playing for New South Wales.
Well, Glenn Lazarus, it's been a very interesting life, a very interesting career that you've had both on the sporting field and off it. Thanks so much for sharing some of it with us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure.